Hello, friends. Thank you so much for tuning into this case study today with Denna. She's going to be sharing her experience going through the brand plan in fall of 2023, and I am so stoked for this conversation. But to kick us off, Denna, will you just go ahead and tell the people who you are?
Absolutely, Rachel. I am so pumped to be here. I am Denna Renee, and I'm based out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and I'm a brand photographer for creative service providers and the host of the Quarter Co, which is a small cohort of, ooh, girl, words are hard, of business
Mhm.
owners. And it is built around systems, accountability, quarterly planning, and community.
Awesome. And the title that Denna is that she didn't drop is a business coach. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that has fostered the spirit of the Quarter Co. And friends, if you don't know who she is and you don't follow her yet, please do. She is one of my favorite humans on the planet, but also just a wonderful encourager and cheerleader in business. And so you should definitely go check her out. But today we're here to talk about your experience in the brand plan. So I would love for you to kind of hit rewind for a second, as much as you can, to summer of 2023 or and before, and try to channel how were you feeling before hopping into the brand plan?
I love it because I feel like if you go back and you look on like some of my social media pages and you look on my website and my blog, and if you were on my email list, you will see I feel not to brag on myself, but I feel like I had moments of greatness. And then I had like wide like seasons of like utter silence. And then I went through a time in end of August through early October, where if you like scroll through my social media, like I was posting every day. Like there was posts going out, well, excuse me, 5 days a week. There were posts going out 5 days a week, and I was pretty consistent in my stories. But I also remember like thinking in the moment that some of the stuff that was going out didn't feel as true to me as it could. And I felt like it was more so I was just like, what can I put out today versus like, is this true to me? How will this serve my customers and clients? And all that. It was more so like I just felt like I had to like check something off. I'm very like to-do list oriented. And I felt like I was like, gotta check it. And there wasn't as much thought or reasoning going behind. And there was a couple things that I was wanting to do, but I just didn't feel like I had permission or the freedom to do it. And there was just like this underlying like disconnect that was very unsettling that even though I was going getting things out and I was having people talk to me, they're like, "Oh, you're doing such a great job. Things are going out." I still felt somewhat uneasy that there it just didn't necessarily feel fully like me and that it wasn't resonating as much as I wanted it to, if that makes sense.
Mhm, mhm. So if you were to like diagnose some of the things, it was like you were proud of some of the stuff you were putting out. You felt
Mhm.
good about some of the rhythms that you had out there, but you just felt like there was a something more that you
Yeah,
could tap into that you just weren't sure was there. Would you say the
absolutely.
same is true with just like your marketing strategy in general? Because like you kind of alluded to that a little bit with the way that you posted on social and that type of thing. But was is there anything you didn't like like, what was stopping you when it came to, like, the way that you were marketing versus the way you wanted to market?
I'm giggling because this is one of my first like questions when I was thinking about joining the brand plan. I was like, Rachel, you have to tell me, is there a right or wrong? Like, is there a hidden like guide or like checklist or like book that I just like missed when I like signed up like I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. Like, did I miss the book? Did someone forget to hand it to me? Because that's how I always felt. I always felt like there was this like one thing that people just forgot to give me when I went and like got my tax ID and became like an official business owner and like filed for my LLC. Like I was like, I think they forgot to give me the marketing handbook. Like it's missing. Like and now I'm sitting over here like what do I do? And no one could tell me like exactly what to do in my business. And after going through the brand plan, like I know why. But in the moment, I would be like sitting down and I'd have conversations with friends, or I'd chat on Instagram, or we'd go to coffee shops and have little meetings, and I would ask people their perspective. But there would be some really good nuggets, but there always felt like there was this, like I said, this unsettled bit, this piece when it came to marketing where I was like, some of these things feel true to me and I couldn't tell you why. And some of these things that I was putting out
Mm,
that were serving my people, I was like, that hit. But again, I couldn't tell you why. I could point at it and be like, oh, this email was great. Or this social post, they loved it. But I couldn't tell you why one thing worked and the other didn't. And I couldn't tell you why some things I was proud of and felt like that was true. And others I was like, well, I got it out today. There was just that disconnect that was very, I think the thing that I just keep coming back to is I felt very unsettled in my marketing.
Mm. Hmm.
There
Okay,
wasn't a
so you
strategy.
mentioned, okay, and that's totally fine. I really do wish that there was like, those books that talks about like this specific thing for dummies. They're like black and yellow,
Yes.
and you can find them in all the half price books. I feel like there should have been um like marketing, like, but it's not just for dummies. Like I would rather them not call us dummies, but like marketing for creative entrepreneurs. Like give me the handbook,
Yes.
hand it to me, and tell me that this is the roadmap. Unfortunately, that's not how business works. I really do wish that it would it would work
Right.
that way.
Absolutely,
Um,
and I think one of the things
but
that
yeah.
was interesting is with several like, I had some people that I deeply admire their businesses, and I would try different things that seemed to work really well in their business, and I would try to, like, not plagiarize, but I would try to take different frameworks that seemed to be working well and try to implement those in my business, and it was like putting on, like a jacket that just didn't fit, where you put it on, you're like, "Ah, that's not me."
Hmm. Yeah. And it's like, it's kind of like when you're at the thrift store and you're like, ooh, I really, really, really like this jacket and I really want it to fit. And it's fitting, but it's a little bit tight here. But I feel like if I just lost a little bit of weight, it would totally work and I would be able to have full range of motion. But no matter what you do, it just doesn't fit because it wasn't made for you. I feel like
Yeah.
that's how sometimes things are when we adapt. So you mentioned a few of the things that you had tried to do to solve the problem in the past.
Mhm.
Is there any that you didn't mention that you would like to talk about? Of like what are some the different things or like solutions you ran to in order to solve the problem?
I feel like one of the things that I struggled with is I didn't necessarily know my voice. I did stories pretty regularly when I made tea and called it tea time. And those always seemed to hit really well and they were great. And I think it was literally because I turned on my camera and I just started talking. But then when I would sit down to write Instagram captions, or if I were creating reels, or if I was writing an email or a blog post, I didn't know my voice very well. And so if on video, I felt like I could be me and it was coming across well. And I think that's why the stories were doing pretty well. But then whenever I tried to take that same, or excuse me, I didn't even try to take that same thing. There was no connecting the dots there. Whenever I sat down to write these different things, it felt like such work because I felt like I needed to sound very formal, very polished. I felt like I needed to sound like something that I could search on Google and pull up this article, and I needed to have that tone. And when I would sit down to write, it just wasn't working. It wasn't clicking. And so that's when it came to the point where I was like burying my head in the sand because I was like, well, this doesn't feel true or real. So I'm just going to go ahead and push that on the to do list for another day. And then weeks and months later, we were in trouble.
Hmm. Okay, so then the big question, how did the brand plan help you remedy all of these things?
So Ashlyn Carter, who we both love, always says that you can outsource your push-ups. And I feel like I had been outsourcing my push-ups when it came to my brand. I had been blessed to go through several different either like mini courses or like through quizzes or online surveys, things where I was like trying to figure out my brand with like a quick questionnaire or a couple like quick hit answers. But the deep work of like excavate, you use the word all the time, like it's a matter of
Mhm.
excavation, where I was trying to figure out like what is actually true and not create something that wasn't there, but literally like recognizing what is there. Like who am I? What is like who is my brand? Like what resonates with my clients and like where do all these things intersect and like what is true? And I I had done the surface level. Like I had cleared the trees out of there. Like we were getting ready to like lay the foundation, like and really create that strong foundation there. But I'd only cleared the trees. I hadn't done any of the dirt and the deep work there to really make it solid. Where when I tried to build things on top of it, that it could actually hold the weight. And so
Mhm.
going through the brand plan made me sit down and actually do the work. And Rachel, you I remember like going through the videos and then like through the guide, which the videos on their own is fantastic. And then you have the guide, and then you can feel a little bit of overwhelm, Rachel, because the amount of like information that you share, you're just like so many numbers, so many stats, so many stories. Your brain's a little bit mush, but like in the really good way where you're like, okay, now that I've watched this and now that I've read this, I need to go do dishes or I need to go do some laundry where I can just allow it to just like sit there and process it because there were like so many things that I was like, I don't feel like I've had to think about my business in this way before, where I'm having to like think of it in a new way and like give myself the freedom to release all my preconceived ideas of what I thought my brand was to then like reconstruct what is actually true. Not like, what do I want to be true? Like, oh, I want to be known as this vibe or this feel or this thing. It's like, well, what is actually true? Because a fake version of me being someone else will never be as good as an actual me choosing to be me and like to stand in my business. And that was hard, but also scary. Like, it's a little intimidating because you can feel you get to be vulnerable and you get to be seen. And it's not like we're bearing our soul, but it can feel a little bit like that when you're having to recognize, like, wait, what is my unfair advantage? And do I even have an unfair advantage? And then you sitting us down with the calls. So, first, like, I feel like in the videos, a lot of those places where I had found hiccups in the past where I'd go, okay, I think these values are really good and I think they're true to me, or I think like this unfair advantage could be true, but I never allowed myself to like really sit with it and like take it in as my own. It was more like something that I wrote down in a Google Doc and it stayed there. But like translating that into everyday life wasn't something that I had done. Like I will say, like all the other things have been so good. They had helped those wheels start turning and I was processing, but there was no translation from Google Docs to real life. And this was the time where you were like, that's not allowed. Like in the brain plan, we are translating, like it can't just live there in a Google Doc or in a workbook. Like it has to translate. Like that's why you're in the brand plan. And I remember like sitting there and kind of being like, like this is hard. In a good way, but like I hadn't been forced to exercise those muscles before because you held my feet to the fire and it was necessary. And you're like, in order for this to be a blessing to your business, to serve your business, your clients, your family, your community well, you have to do the deep work. And so goodness, I'm like so grateful that I went through it. Like I'm like, I know who I am and I know why certain things worked and I know why things didn't. And I know like I know things like, consistency isn't showing up 5 days a week. It's not the number, it's like the quality and the value that's within something. And so there was just so many mental shifts that happened during this time that just like I feel like were those moments where you like stick a pin in it and you're like, huh, whole new mindset shift happening over there. And it's like it changes the way that you think and process, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, I would fully agree. And I think that to hit the nail on the head of some of to like summarize one of the things that you said, it was like you knew the thing before, but there's a difference between knowing it and owning it. And the
Yeah.
process of translating it allows it to take it from this concept that's floating over here that I theoretically know who I am, or know what my business does, or know what transformation I provide for people, or I know what my voice is in theory. But all of this stuff can continue to live in theory and float around in my head. But until I do the work to like walk it out and translate it, then I don't actually have the confidence to step into it.
No,
And
and I
so,
think that was one of the beautiful things is within the group calls, we had the opportunity to talk through it and you gave examples of like what that could look like. You also gave examples in the workbook, and in the guide, like the corresponding guide, what that could look like. But then in our one-on-one, you walked me through like what that looks like for me. And that was huge.
mhm,
And there was different parts of my brand that, or excuse me, of me that I feel like really did go along with my brand that I was avoiding and hiding from. Like you named it my inner grandma. Um,
yes, that's my favorite storyline you came up with.
and so my inner grandma, like I love gardening and I love cooking and sewing is one of my favorite hobbies. And catch me on a Tuesday night and I might be puzzling. And these are things that I truly find joy in. And surprisingly, I'm not the only one in her 20s who finds joy in these things. And so these were things that I really did enjoy that I never shared, or excuse me, I would rarely share on social or tie into emails or into blog posts or like into my website because I felt like they needed to be disconnected. And you were able to like bring those together and help me talk through like as a coach, like people want to know that you are living a life that they aspire to. And so the fact that you have the time freedom to puzzle and to sew and to garden and to bake and make meals for your husband, like that is actually showing proof of the fact that you've built the systems that allow you the freedom to do that. And I remember going like, "Oh my goodness, I never realized those could tie in." And I was just like, "Rachel's another Rachel's a genius moment." I know that's not what you're asking for, but like that's really what it was. But it also just like it gave me the freedom to do that and like to serve my people well by connecting my inner grandma. Who'd have thought?
Hmm. Yeah. I just love, and I still remember that part of your one-on-one, and even that part of like our cohort call where we were talking through strengths and we were talking through things. And I think it's so funny because I'm not used to you. Like we've been in multiple times we've been in the same Zoom room or we've been in the same physical room. And you're not always somebody that sits back and is quiet and like you're usually like up here nodding and whatever. But there was like at least one call where you walked in and you were so quiet and you were really thinking and it was almost like you were a bit not like insecure, but you were definitely feeling like a fish out of water at some point. And there was a
True.
moment where you shared your strengths and you were like, and we were working through like how does this manifest in your business, in your life. And I still remember the moment where because like there were two other people in the cohort this time who knew you before coming into the brand plan. And so there was just a moment where people were just sharing back to you the way that they saw
You're
that
just like,
strength
"Ooh."
manifest. And you were wanting to literally shrink and crawl
I think I
because
like
like
went out of the frame at
you
one point.
did. You did so many times. And it's so funny because like what you tell me all the time is, one of those things that's like what's ordinary to you is extraordinary to someone else. And I think the beautiful thing about your journey through the brand plan is that you finally got to sit in the seat that you place other people in all the time. And I think you finally got to go through the journey where you were like, oh, wait, I don't have to diminish all these things about me and just be the person that runs around and serves and like takes care of everybody else, like that there is merit in who I am and in what I bring to the table, and I'm allowed to just share that. I don't have to be someone else in order to get people's attention. And I think that was one of my favorite things, which is like the inner grandma. It's like the manifestation of the inner grandma thing. Because I was like, no, Dana, one of the coolest things about you is that not that one of the coolest things, but one of the really cool things about you is that you know how to quilt. And but the fact that like you say I'm gonna quilt, but then you say I am going to finish all these quilts because I want to be known as someone that finishes what I start. I was like, that right there is the thing that people are going to cling to. And it's like they don't have to quilt. It could be that they just need to, finish their dishes or clean out their closet. But like I want to I want to live the life that I want to live and I don't just want to be subject to everything that reality looks like now. How do I slowly become who I want to become? And that's the thing that you help people usher into because so many of us look at things like massive mountains and we're like, gosh, I'm not even going to start climbing it because I don't know where the trail goes. It's like, no,
Mhm.
how do you climb a mountain? One step at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. All of us look at things like elephants and mountains and we're like, I'm just going to stay right here. But you don't get the beauty of the experience without taking the steps and you help people do that. And so I think that's one of the fun things that we were able to put words to throughout your time
It
in the
was
brand
so
field.
helpful, like, sitting there and, like, having people one is, like, very I'm was very uncomfortable and probably quite the awkward human during that time because like, I don't know what to do. But then 2, I remember, like, this is a personal struggle that I've had, but oftentimes I feel like my value is based on what I can do for people, and I remember this was once again, like, someone speaking back to me and, like, telling me, like, it's not in what you can do for people, it's like who you are and the way that the Lord wired you, and the strength that He has given you. And what you do will come out of who you are, but what you do is not who you are. And I remember just being like, oh my goodness, this is so much truth. I don't think my business can handle this. But then it gave me so much freedom to like be able to speak with some level of authority, and be able to share based on facts versus like I felt like I had to share based on either feelings or here's a quick checklist for a quick win, where then I was able to position things more as like again, as an authority, which it still feels a little uncomfortable coming out of my mouth. You can tell I'm still learning that one. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember just like that began the mental shift for me, which then has helped me within the brand plan. You talk about like these different goals that we can like aspire to, these 6 different goals that we can work on in our marketing plan. And one of them is like shifting more into a thought leader. And that was one that I'm like wanting to lean into a little bit more as I'm hosting the Quarter Co. It is a necessity to position myself as a thought leader for these women to trust me as I serve them. I won't be able to have the opportunity to serve them if they can't see the proof and trust me based off of what I'm able to share in advance. And I remember just like recognizing like that shift had to take place in order to continue on. But like stepping into that wasn't something that I was hosting the Quarter Co before, let's be clear. But that was a role that I hadn't stepped into in that role. I was as the host of the Quarter Co, I was more so hiding, where now I feel like I have the opportunity to stand a little bit, like sit a little bit taller, like put on my big girl pants and like share. And I've been so encouraged by the people who have been said they've been blessed by that and challenged by that and the skills that I've been able to share. And it's not me, like these are the things that the Lord has either wired me to do or like resources that I've been able to find and skills I've been able to hone. But I wouldn't have had the courage. I don't think I would have had the courage to share that if I almost feel we're getting a little rambly here, but I almost feel like I was in a bit of a business identity crisis. Like I feel like I was
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of a business identity crisis, but inwardly, like outwardly, I felt like I was like, I think I've got it all together. And you're just like hoping you don't rock the boat too much and no one notices. But internally, you're like, I'm a fraud. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
time until like the business, like, I don't know, whoever they are, guides, board comes to me and goes, oh, honey, we figured out that you're a fraud. It's time to go. I was just waiting for that moment. And I feel like this allowed me to like find that place where I was settled, where I am at peace. And I don't feel this urgency to like constantly crank things out, but to more so like take the time to really think about like, how am I serving my people? What is this leading back to in my business? How is this going to be a blessing? What is the like purpose behind each thing that I'm doing and where does it line up versus just like let's see how much content we can get out because we live in an Instagram world or a microwave world where people are just constantly putting things out. But I want to be someone if I am taking up time in your inbox on your Zoom call in your feed, like I want to be someone that is loving and serving well and creating things of quality and value. And so giving myself that freedom to actually like talk about the heart and the why, I was too scared to do that before because I couldn't have told you all of my whys. Like I could have told you a couple of general ones, but like really like the root, the core, and the understanding that marketing comes from branding, like not the other way, like the how those like intersect with one another. I don't think I could have done that before going through the brand plan, truly.
And I think that you also like hit the nail on the head on another thing. It's you could have continued in business without this. You could have. But the shift that you made when you decided to open the Quartered Co. called you to a higher level. You didn't understand that when you stepped into the expert role and you said, okay, I am forming the room where growth is going to happen. But it forced you to become someone new. You had to put on a new identity. But the thing is that there's a level of accountability that you're called to in
Mm-hmm.
that space, and you now have to be the person that knows who they are and can operate from that
Yep.
confidently because people are coming to you for help like more often. And so it's like that shift, it's like a tectonic shift in your business. When you make a pivot like that, something has to change and something has to give.
Yes.
And your question is it going to be something that I wait until the pieces entirely fall apart to choose to change? Or am I on the forefront of change and I choose to grow with the business that I'm growing rather than staying over here and waiting until the pieces fall apart to step into that growth?
I
So,
love that.
yeah.
Well, one of the things that I just want to like also put out there is there's a part of me that 100% joined the brand plan in hopes that you would hand me this beautiful like marketing for dummies book and I'd be like finally done. um and yeah, I joined the brand plan And it was so much more than that. Yes, I found marketing rhythms and things that I'm able to implement in my business. And I have storylines and I can tell you my purpose statement and all these different things that are incredible. But the mental shift that took place but through going through the brand plan wouldn't have happened any other way than going through this by being forced to do the deep work. Like there were mental shifts that happened. Like I remember like recognizing the fact as like different trends were coming out through the holidays. Like we went through in October, we finished our one-on-one in November. And then I remember like this was all around like Black Friday sales and Cyber Monday. And I remember in the past, I would see things coming through on my inbox and I would either be like, putting things away for next year or thinking about like what can I do in December, like, and I would be ready to like jump on any trend, things of that nature. And I remember being at peace through all of that and going like taking note of the things that I like, but not feeling like I had to just like jump on every single little thing, because that's what another business owner did that I greatly admired. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like those shifts that happen, I feel like there was a mental freedom that came when going through the brand plan that was unexpected. That was an unexpected of the brand plan. When I thought I was going in was to get the Marketing for Dummies book, and what I came out with was a mental shift that is going to allow me to be sustainable, and have a business that stands the test of time. That isn't like trying to
Mm-hmm.
ride every wave, but that will actually be a business that I can be proud of, and one that, again, I can continue on. And it's going to allow me, because of my understanding of marketing and branding, I'm going to be able to continue on in seasons as life change. Like at this time, I don't have any children, but I prayerfully will someday. And I know because of things that I've done by going through the brand plan, I will be able to like move with those ebbs and flows of life because the brand plan isn't like A, B, C, D, E, F, D, G. But it is very much like here is a framework, here is a plan, here are things that you can do, and it is open to change as your life seasons ebb and flow. And that was very like the freedom, like I said, the mental freedom that came and peace was such a gift.
Yeah. So if you were to put in words then, like what was your single biggest takeaway from the brand plan?
I feel like there were so many amazing takeaways, but I think the biggest takeaway, oh goodness, Rachel, you're gonna make me do this. The biggest
Mm-hmm.
takeaway was probably she said, uh-huh. She's like, you have had practice for this. You went through the brand plan. But I feel like there was probably two. And I think the biggest one was the deep work that I had to do internally. Actually, we'll go with that one. That is the one. The deep work that I had to do internally that then changed everything that I did externally was the biggest gift that I got from going through the brand plan. And it was because it was a mental shift. So it happened internally as I was processing all these questions and all this information that you were throwing at us. And I was having to do the deep work that I had never done. Like I had done the surface level, but I'd never done the deep, deep, deep work and then figure out how that translates into everyday life. There was a mental shift that happened there that this is possible and that my marketing has to come out of who I am because with my business, I am my business. And so they are deeply intertwined. But it had to come out of who I am, not just things that I wanted to do, not just like current trends that were happening, not out of things that I found on ChatGPT. Like these had to be out of truly figuring out who I am and doing that deep work and then figuring out how that goes into everyday life. And you held my hand through that entire process.
Love it. Okay. Last thing. Well, I can't say it's the last thing. There's two other questions really fast. The first one, I want to just have a moment where we put the spotlight on you really quick and let's just do like a quick rapid fire celebration. So the first thing is like, what have you launched or finished since your time in the brand plan?
So I have launched my calendar bundle. So I'm really excited. I have a calendar bundle out there, which was really exciting to be able to share. And then I have launched another round of the Quarter Co. And it has come in a somewhat different format that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone through the brand plan. So I launched both of those things, and I'm in process of launching two other things, which you know about, that are to come. And again, those would have only happened by going through the brand plan.
Love it. Okay. And then, oh wait, you already kind of answered this. It was like, how did you see the work that you did in the plan come through during that season of celebration, or like those things that you launched?
By the way, Rachel, I just have to say, so I did put out a reel about quilting, which I never would have done before.
Yeah.
And it was the one where I was like showing all these quilts that I started like from the time I was like 11 until 17
Uh-huh.
and just had never finished.
And a
I had
beautiful
never,
script. Like, guys, please, I'm gonna link her Instagram account. So like after you're done watching this, you're gonna go click on that and you're gonna go watch this reel because for one, the, such talent. I don't understand. I can't make those things happen with a sewing machine. Um, but also it was just like I still remember the proud mom smile I had on this side of the screen when that reel came out because I was like,
you're
Jenna,
so
look at her
sweet. Well,
go.
girl, I
This is her.
never would have
Anyways,
shared that. I never would have shared that. And I was in my office and I had pulled out my sewing boxes and I was finding fabrics because I was making hot pads for some family for Christmas. And I was like, I know that I had a plan to finish these quilts. But I was like, I'm just gonna quickly like I was literally packing to go on a trip. And I was like, I just put my phone on and just went whoop, 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 and showed my quilt. And I had never gotten that much engagement, I don't think, on a post, other than when I was showing my husband, because everybody seems to love my husband, Chad. But I'd never gotten that much. And it was people like talking about like that resonated with me. Like they may not have said like there were a couple people that were like, I'm a quilter and I love this too. But there were so many people who were like, I want to be someone who finishes what I start. And may not have been as much engagement on the actual post itself, but the amount of DMs that I got off of that, I was like,
mm,
Rachel knows what she's talking about. It was just another moment where I was like, this works. It really does. Like just being who the Lord calls you to be and showing up. Like you always talk about marketing and sharing and just sharing. Like that was a truth that the Lord had challenged me is I want to be someone who finishes what I start. Which I hadn't been one, by the way, in my branding and marketing before. And I just didn't know how to do that. And you with the brand
mm.
plan walked me through and like how to finish, like how to figure that out. And so I was able to do that. And then I was able to share it in another factor through the quilts, and I was just like going through the process. Like it wasn't. I knew it was going to be worth it before. Let's be real. When you even started talking about launching, I was like, I'm signing up. But then when I went through it, I was like, oh, Rachel, this is the deep work. And then as I went through, I was like, this is 100% worth it. The peace of mind, my friend, worth every penny and so much more.
And I think the one thing I want to point out really quick that you just said was that the engagement and the proof of concept didn't come through comments on the post. It came through conversations in your DMs and the way that people brought up that reel to you, whether it was in real life or in client conversations or whatnot. And so I think it's also proof that like the people are listening to the things that you share and they're paying attention. They don't always engage with it, but what you say matters and what you put out matters. And like the more that you really hone in on what that is and you have the confidence to share those things, the more people are going to talk back to you about the
Yeah.
things that you want them to talk to you about.
Yes. Oh my goodness, my friend, you're so right. I'll just give a quick brief example. So I shared that back in December. So we had finished up the brand plan in November, and it was just something I was doing getting ready for a trip. And it is currently the last day of February. And last week, I had someone who brought it up to me. They're like, I love that you're a quilter. I'm trying to finish all my projects around the house too. And I was like, oh, she's talking about the real. But for a second there, I was like, how does she know I'm a quilter? And I was like, again, like marketing things when you are marketing based off things that are true to you, people can tell. Like in a world of things like Chat GPT, which is a great tool, but in a world of things like that with AI, people resonate with real. And I feel like you gave me.
Mhm.
Sometimes you talk about in the brand plan like that permission slip, and I really feel like you handed me that permission slip to like channel my enneagramma and to like show up in confidence as a thought leader and to talk about systems and rhythms and geeky things like that because the people that it's meant for like they'll be blessed by it, it will resonate with them and it will serve them well. And so that was just a fun little one.
Love it. I love it. Okay, so true last question, really quick.
Okay.
Other than just do it, what would you say to someone who is on the fence about the brand plan?
You're worth the investment. I think I would just encourage you that you really are worth the investment. The peace of mind that you will get this, even if you're like feeling fairly good about the things that are going out, you will be able to walk in a quiet confidence, knowing that these things are true to you and that they are true to your audience. And just that freedom that you will have to be able to like sit a little bit taller, show up a little bit brighter, and be able to serve your people well. It is worth the investment. It is worth your time. I feel like this is one of those things that I pushed to the back burner for a long time. And I didn't even fully recognize that I was doing it, but I want to encourage you, don't put that on the bottom of the to-do list. Like, your business needs to be profitable. It has to be profitable. And a lot of times, the way that we are able to make our business profitable is by getting eyeballs on our business. And when we do that, it's through marketing. And this isn't something that you can sleep on. Like, doing the deep work, having a marketing plan that is true to you and your business will pay off in the long run more than you could ever imagine. And you are 1,000,000% worth the investment.
And listen, I am sure you came into this conversation ready to hear Denna's experience in the brand plan and see if it might be the next step for you. But I know that you're leaving with so much more gold because of how much she shared and how much she gave in our conversation. So there's a couple of points that I feel like you should probably rewind and listen to. I feel like this was just a podcast episode, like a conversation that our friends got to tune into. And the benefit was hearing some of the ways the brand plan has impacted you. So friend, thank you for just showing up and being you. Thank you for sharing your experience. And just thank you for being the dear friend that you are. And friends, like I said at the very beginning, if you don't have Denna in your life, in your Instagram feed or in your email inbox, please do. She will bless your life. So thanks for tuning in.